Hello, everybody, and welcome to Bomber Banter. It is the post-replay review of our game versus Brisbane up at the Gabba. This is actually the second time I'm doing this because the first time I did it, the microphone was all the way over there and I forgot to put it in front of my mouth. So it was just barely a hue, barely a whisper that you could hear. So I said in that recording that I'm going to keep it short and sharp, but I really am going to keep this short and sharp given that I've literally already gone through all of this once. But maybe that's a sign from the universe that it sucked and this time is going to be better. So as usual, going to go through the things that I noticed on the many replays that I have watched. I hope all of you have enjoyed watching a replay as well. I dare say even the most pessimistic Essendon supporter has watched some of the replay because, wow, did it warrant watching again. It was an unfamiliar feeling, an unfamiliar sight to watch our team on Thursday night. I'm going to say something that I think most people probably won't agree with. I think the logical explanation and the logical understanding is that we, went smaller, therefore faster. But I can't help but feel after watching the replay that it was more about system rather than personnel. For the first time in forever that I've been watching football, it felt like a team that any player could come in, big or small, into a system and play a role and play it well and excel in the tactics that we used. Yes, it makes sense that the taller players aren't as fast, but it was more about how fast and where we played on with the football than it was how fast they were in their legs and running, 10 metres. I think, we are so used to going sideways and backwards in a stodgy, really disorganised manner that it was the complete opposite on Thursday night. And, our switching of the angles was what stood out the most on the night, but also watching the replay, finally they found a protractor because the 45-degree angle was the way to go. And yes, the whole point of switching the ground and making it bigger and, taking that more challenging kick, you have to work hard and it requires a gut running and it requires you to burn your teammate off and to shock them, with how hard you're working. So, and we did it. From the second quarter anyway onwards, we showed that we had it in us, particularly Roberts, Martin, Dursma, Redman, Clark, all were the outlet player who gut-runned after we'd either, from a kick-in or after a stoppage or forcing a turnover and getting a free. I thought, you'd look up or you'd look further, as much as you can watching on TV, and you'd see Roberts absolutely gut-running to be that outlet player. And I thought he really started it in the second. I thought he put his head down and started that intent because it was a clear change in intent. And whilst our pressure was still down on the Fox Footy pressure rating meter, whatever they do, we were getting scoreboard ascendancy and we were getting it into our forward line. And I believe we were more accurate, definitely more than the Lions. It would be lovely to be getting more reward from our entries, but I thought they were pretty good on a whole. What was most pleasing was the movement and the changing of angles and the bravery and the dare to do that. And, we even had enough, those wingers and mids and half-backs even had gut run so much into so much space with so much space ahead of the ball. They even had time for a missed mark, or the player kicking the ball had time to miss-kick it because there was space and time to clean up. We didn't have to. Our skills were really, really good, but in case, if you have to stuff up, that's when you can do it because there's time and space to clean up your work and clean up the mess. Brisbane expected us to play the whole game like we did in the first. That is how they excel. That is their game plan. They close space, they force you into a corner and then force you to kick it long where Harris Andrews, Payne and the like can pick it off, and it showed because Caddy got no touches in the first. We asked so much of him and Tumita Peter that, we played right into Brisbane's hands, and they did not expect us to firstly change tactics, but secondly to work as hard as we did, and they did not match us, which was incredible. And I won't hear that they were down or they were having an off night. They absolutely weren't. I would say if I thought they were, but this was so much about us and not about them that more so than any game we've seen this year. And I have said in most of our wins this year, or most of the games we've played okay, the teams have had an off moment or an off quarter or an off night. Against Collingwood, the quarter that we excelled, they were off. They were shell-shocked. North Melbourne, the first quarter, they didn't come to play. Sydney for 3 quarters, that's not the Sydney we expect. They were off, although they're going pretty poorly, so maybe that is their identity this year. But I just think that it's really important that nobody loses sight that it was so much about us and not about Brisbane playing poorly. They had a fully fit team. Most of, I would say 90% of their cattle was there out there. They'd had coming off a great win. They were at home. They had all the comforts, that they are used to. So it was very pleasing. I do have one question though. In the first quarter, we were very, very visibly going down the line and playing it safe. And in the second quarter and beyond, we changed that tactic. Why was that not implemented from the get-go? Is that the players not feeling brave enough or taking some time to get into the game and feeling they had to, go straight down the line and feeling under more pressure than they were? Or was it the coaches just not imploring them to actually play that way and to play brave and to play, to force that 45, to take that 45 angle kick and change up, spread the ground, spread Brisbane's press, because they're so highly pressed up to one side of the ground, forcing you, that they're not expecting you to switch angles on them. So I don't know whether that was personnel, players, or coaches not instructing them to do it, but I think it's safe to say that one works and one doesn't. So, and it won't work against all opposition, but it does work against opposition that play this way. So I think it's safe to say that we have a blueprint now, and personally, I don't think it's personnel. But what do you think? Let me know in the comments. Are you team personnel or are you team system? Was it more having smaller players and having most of our, tall timber out, or was it a complete switch in system and a sustainable system at that? Let me know. I want to talk about Roberts a bit more. I thought something that was really noticeable on the replays was just how much he's maturing as a player. It takes a few games, sometimes even a few years to get used to the pace and, to start reading the umpires and, when they're going to call you for holding the ball. And I've just noticed now he's reading it so beautifully and knowing when to take a tackle and force a ball up rather than give a dinky little handball to, the tackler who then takes it up the other end for their team. So, opposite to that, you could see Archer Day Wicks, who did it a few times, wasn't quite sure whether he was going to get pinged for holding the ball, so didn't take the tackle and force a ball up and just gave off a handball in, to no man's land, where a Brisbane player cleaned it up and took it down into their forward 50. So I just thought, watching Roberts, it's so wonderful to see him growing as a player and maturing and, becoming one of those players who's probably going to be a leader for us. And it's just, he's on the right track, and it's good to get some validation in that way, development wise, because that's something that's probably taught and learned, and it's encouraged off the field, but you don't really get it until you're in it. And I think that's a tick in the right direction for him. I want to talk a little bit about Angus Clark. I really enjoy watching the nuances in a player's behaviour, their body language off the ball, their interactions with teammates off the ball, their interactions with their opponents, and what they do, standing, even to the point, how are they standing on the sidelines? Are they locked in? I'm the kind of person who reads into all of it. all the work I've done on psychology in the psychology space, I read into all of it and I analyze all of it and I love it. So, and for him, he's just ticking so many of my little spidey scent boxes in that regard. He is, he was picking players up off the ground after they'd been slipped over or tackled, teammates, picking them up off the ground, going into bat for teammates when they're aggrieved or, in a little bit of a biff. And it's not just him. He doesn't strike you as the tough, get in a scruff kind of kid, but it's more of an ingrained sense of, self on the football field. And I just think it's such a good sign. They're little signs, but from a point of view where you just think, yeah, he's got it. You just like to see these early signs in a player, and he definitely will have a long career, hopefully for us. But yeah, I cannot see him leaving the team anytime soon, and that's wonderful. And I hope he starts to develop more confidence in himself and in his game. He already looks like he's quite confident in himself and his spot, but hopefully that grows. And I thought Johnson looked pretty good too. He's got very short shins and calves, doesn't he? And ankles. I don't know. He's kind of got a bit of twinkle toe about him. I can see him, turning players around, and he could be the best thing that happened to Andy McGrath. I tell you what, those two could get up to a little bit of mischief down there in a good way. I thought on Andy, yeah, he did a great job closing down Cameron. Obviously, Cameron kicked the one goal, but that was from Laverty's 50 metre. So he didn't have to do much run and carry because it was doing a lot. But a lot of the other players were actually standing up and doing it for him. He was participated in a bit of it, but his main role was to keep Cameron occupied and limit his scoreboard pressure, adding to the scoreboard in the ways that we know he can. Laverty was, mind blown, literally. I absolutely put my hand up, did not think he had that performance in him. My biggest bugbear with him is, it's not about the fact that he's playing. I understand. I take into account that he's playing below his weight and height average a lot of the time for a lot of his career, but it's more the mental side of it. For every 5 good things he does 3 bad things, and it often leads to goals because where he is on the ground. And that was my biggest issue with him for a lot of has been my biggest issue with him for a lot of his career. But he was, not only did he have to be the tall, biggest presence in the back line, because he actually was, for us, the tallest, but he took it upon himself to, to direct and to manage the area, manage the players in there. And I thought he read the ball beautifully. He, looked fit and strong and didn't do many brainless things. So big tick for him. And hey, if he plays like that every week, you have a spot in my best 22, Jaden, if you play like that every week. So well done. Okay, I believe it is now time for... Yes, you girls experimenting. So, all right, the Twix Awards. 3 Twix goes to Martin for everything I have already mentioned about him, but mainly for the reason that when the going was tough and the Lions were looking like they were going to, take the game and run with it, and it was looking like a really dour night in the first quarter, he was absolutely just locked in, running, pressuring, keeping the energy up. He really looked like he was in for the fight all night, and I think it was another terrific leadership display from him. 2 Twix goes to Caldwell. It would not surprise me if he was still on fire. His third quarter was absolutely ridiculous in the most wonderful way. It's his 3rd, 4th game back from injury. To play at the intensity that he does, I dare say he would take 2 days to come down off the trajectory that the trajectory would be like that, because he is just so locked in. He's the most unconditional player that we have, and we are so friggin' lucky. He led the clearances for us, tackles, goal assists, and contested possession. So just another enormous game from him. 1 Twix could have gone to 3 players. 2 I've spoken about already in Roberts and Laverty, but I'm giving it to Caddy for his goal. For his goal of the year goal, let's be quite honest. It's going to be hard to beat that one. But, I mean, the third quarter, it was Caddy's word, and we were really just living in it because it was good to see him get some reward for all that hard work that he was doing in the first and always does, getting really high up the ground. I'm going to say again, he's walking taller with 2 metre Peter there. 2 metre Peter is another one who, for the most part, the shepherd is dead in AFL because it's all about being the next transition player, not about helping a teammate. It's about getting to the next in front of your teammate and being the next ball carrier. So the shepherd's dead, but he laid 2 incredible shepherds on Thursday night, and I thought that is because it's a selfless footy act, the shepherd. I just thought he is so focused at the moment and really, on being a team player and helping, knowing that he's the big boy, one of the only big boys at the moment out there, and helping the smaller, more nimble mids and backs and forwards excel. And, again, another rundown tackle in the back line, tick, marking, tick, goal, set shot kicking, tick. I thought he has just continued to do beautifully, helping Goldstein out. Obviously, he's been asked to do a lot more, and he's holding up really well. So the point of saying that was that how much, he is contributing to the rise of Caddy and allowing Caddy to get some reward for his hard work. So, well done, 2 metre. Okay, so the half Twix. Now, I can't give half to every single player, but a lot of them deserved half, but these are the ones that get a half. Lav, Roberts, 2 metre Peter, Redmond, McGrath, Pryor and Goldie. Almost gave half to Guelphy. I thought he did a really good job on Zorko, but not quite enough to get a half a Twix. So, look, my previous recording was much more thorough, but honestly, I'm sick of the sound of my own voice at this point. So I'm going to leave it there for this week's post-replay review. As I have put out on all socials, you have a big week of content coming up, starting with the forecast tomorrow night. And from then on, you are getting a mid-season around the grounds review with Robert Shaw. Pommy from Pommy and Oz is going to be gracing us with his vivacious presence on Thursday night for team selection. And then, of course, the fan cams on Sunday night post-game. So hope you all are well. Thank you once again for all the support, the love. I see all the comments and likes and interactions, and I take them all to heart. It means so much to me. I can't thank you enough. I know it's only a 1-second thing, but to me it means a lot more. So thank you, and I'll see you tomorrow night for the forecast.